Are you really excited about starting to work at the sandwich factory tomorrow?
Hello? Can you hear me? There's probably people at the factory that have been making cheese sandwiches their entire lives, and they're going to look at me, 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 and they're going to call me a loser.
Tom Green wants to be an animator, but he keeps getting hired to make cheese sandwiches in Freddy Got Fingered, one of 5 new movies this week. I'm Richard Roeper.
And I'm Roger Ebert. And what is the most disgusting film of 2001? Well, let's see. In a field that includes T-Spot Run, Monkey Bone, Tomcats, and Joe Dirt, so we got some great contenders.
Yeah.
The champion is Freddy Got Fingered, with Tom Green making David Spade look like Jim Carrey and Jim Carrey look like Laurence Olivier. It's a vomitorium of a movie starring Green as Gord, an obnoxious retard who makes it his life's work to freak out his dad, played with teeth-gnashing scorn by Rip Torn.
Oh, look, honey, our boy's a genius. He's rigged a pulley system so he can eat sausage and work on his stupid drawings.
I'm being creative? Now, if you'll excuse me, I still have some work to do. Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages?
Life for Gord is an exercise in manic excess. Even taking a shower leads to the toilet.
Oh, no, the treasure! It went into that underwater cave! Get out of the toilet!
Gord goes to Los Angeles looking for work and hopes animation executive Anthony Michael Hall will hire him.
I'm Dave Davidson. Is there a problem? Mr. Davidson? Yes, I am. Really? Yeah, officer, really. Is there a problem here, or...?
I'm not really a cop. My name's Gord, and I want to meet you to show you my drawings.
Your drawings? Are you kidding?
These scenes make Freddy Got Fingered look merely like a low-rent version of Adam Sandler, but this movie pays no rent at all. On TV, we can't show you the scene where Green swings a newborn baby around his head by its umbilical cord, or 2 scenes involving the sexual organs of a stallion and a bull elephant, or when he skins a deer and runs around wearing its bloody carcass, or any of the jokes about child abuse. The MPAA gave this movie an R rating. That's definitive evidence that the MPAA ratings board is morally adrift, and that we need a workable adult rating for movies like this.
You're absolutely right. This is ground zero. It has to be ground zero of bad comedies. And Tom Green with this horse and with this elephant, if a woman was doing that, this movie would be banned in Tijuana, let alone getting an R rating. And it's just so horrible, and he's such an unfunny guy. He should be flipping burgers somewhere. Why is Tom Green getting movies, and who wants to see this guy? You know, even in a stupid comedy, there has to be a setup before you have a punchline. This is just, hey, let's just do a bunch of punchlines, and the punchlines are, let's do gross-out stuff. Let's do jokes, like you said, about child molestation, but there's nothing to even set up the bad taste humor.
I know. I want to get into a little theory here. I think that humor works if you make fun of somebody's character, but not if you make fun of their status.
Okay.
Now, if there's something funny about a person, then that's a legitimate target. But the scene of the pregnant woman in the hospital who goes into labor and he rips the baby out of her womb and swings it around his head.
Choose the umbilical
That
cord.
woman is not set up in any way, I mean, how could she be, as a comic target. She is frightened. She is in pain. She is terrified. And then he brings the baby back to life by swinging it around his head and keeps saying, I saved the day, I saved the day.
That's so funny.
And
that's so
I'm
funny.
sitting there in the audience feeling sad and sick.
For everybody, not just for us watching it, but for the people who worked on this movie. So that's enough with Freddy Got Fingered for us. Okay, our next movie is The Body, based on a novel with an intriguing setup. What would happen if human bones discovered in Jerusalem today turned out to be the skeletal remains of Jesus Christ? Alas, this promising core idea is drowned in a whirlpool of frustrating and sometimes laughable plot complications. Olivia Williams plays a plucky Israeli archaeologist, and Antonio Banderas is the soldier-turned-priest sent to investigate her claim that the remains she has discovered are those of Jesus.
Sorry, you're a priest who's not an archaeologist sent by the Vatican to investigate an archaeological dig that is going to up the church for the rest of time, and I'm expected to believe that you don't have an agenda?
But listen to me, I have no expectations of you other than keeping your eyes on the road, please.
Yeah, well,
Derek Jacobi is wildly overwrought as a Jesuit scholar whose world is rocked by the possibility that Jesus did not rise from the dead.
Put God aside, and let me talk to the science. Please, tell me. Give me something we can use. Something we can hold on to.
But I already have. Mark 13, verse 21. The body in the tomb is the false prophet. You accept him, and you summon the Antichrist.
Of course, every possible faction, including the Vatican, the Israeli government, Hasidic Jews, and anti-Israel guerrillas, gets into the act.
If what's in that tomb
causes the Vatican to side with Israel on Jerusalem, the other Catholic nations will follow. And that, my friend, will deprive us from our birthright.
The body goes to great lengths to be taken seriously. Priests and laymen alike are constantly quoting the Bible to support their respective theories and to explain to the audience what's going on. And there's that good, helpful Gregorian music that we get in movies like this to remind us they're not playing around here. But the supporting characters are so poorly realized and the story development's so arbitrary, by the end, it's really nearly impossible to figure out who wants the body to be that of Jesus and who doesn't, and why. The body has the look and the feel of an important epic, but at heart, it's just a pretentious mess punctuated by some painful overacting.
We're substantially in agreement here, and the whole business of how it gets involved with Israeli-Arab politics and who owns various parts of Jerusalem only complicates the matter unnecessarily unless they had really gotten involved in it, which they don't. Now, I'm interested in the idea behind the movie, just as I'm fascinated by this notion that maybe you could clone Jesus from some DNA in the Shroud of Turin, which is another idea that's out there. But the basic idea is so fascinating that by the end of the movie, when they're having a gun battle,
Straight out of Die Hard or
that's
something.
just intellectually bankrupt. They haven't really dealt with these issues at all.
Yeah, at some point in the middle of the movie, you don't really care if it's Jesus or just some guy named Dave, and that's unfortunate.
Later in the show, Center of the World is being called the sexiest film of the year. And coming up next, Paul Hogan is back as Crocodile Dundee.
Welcome to Wendy's.
Good evening, Wendy.
Pulled it under. Pulled it under? There, big one. That big.
13 years have passed since the last Crocodile Dundee movie with no complaints from me, but Paul Hogan is still wrestling crocodiles in Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. As the movie opens, he settled down in the outback with Sue, the TV newswoman he met in the first movie, and they have a cute kid named Mikey, and then her dad, a media mogul, asked her to fill a vacancy in his L.A. newspaper bureau, so Mick Dundee finds himself once again reacting like Tarzan in the city.
Yeah, look out, folks. It's a giant deadly anaconda.
Sorry. Reflex action.
Mick specializes in conversations where he deflates the pretensions of the pompous.
Just tell me a few tiles about Mel Gibson.
You don't know Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I do. You know him, too. Met him at Donk's pub. Mel Gibson. Tall, red-headed fella. Walks with a limp.
Oh, Malcolm Gibson. Not Mel Gibson.
Yeah, Mel Gibson. I know about him over here. Small world, isn't it?
It's unlikely that even someone from way, way back in the outback of Australia would be such a babe in the woods he doesn't know how a fast food drive-through lane works. The movie's plot involves a smuggling scam covered by the production of money-losing movies, but a bigger mystery is, since the first two Crocodile Dundee movies grossed $610 million, why did it take 13 years to make the third one? Not that I was growing impatient. The movie is meandering and genial and low-key and obvious, and situations are recycled from earlier films, like when Crocodile turns the tables on some muggers. It's harmless, it's okay for kids, but thumbs down.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's not bad, it's just not necessary. And a lot of the jokes almost seem like they're from the 80s. You know, high-five jokes and let's do lunch, he's saying. It's also not consistent in the comedy. You mentioned that. You know, here's Crocodile Dundee. He knows about cell phones in the Outback, because there's a joke early on with that. And he knows about American television, NYPD Blue, but then he doesn't know about valet parking and he doesn't know about drive-through. So they're not even consistent with the few jokes they bother with and the whole plot about the smuggling and everything. It's almost like they're barely trying. They're not really trying to come up with anything clever here. It seems like everybody's just kind of going through the motions.
You know, doesn't it always amaze you when a character in a movie tells a joke that everyone in the audience has heard and no one in the movie has heard?
And they laugh uproariously.
Like the guy who takes the wheelbarrow past customs every day, and what was he smuggling? Ah, he was smuggling wheelbarrows. I heard that when I was 5 years old.
But when he tells it, everybody laughs uproariously because he's Mick Dundee. Okay, coming up next, a dot-com millionaire and a stripper share a long Las Vegas weekend in center of the world.
Richard, you can't do this. We have to stick to the agreement.
And looking ahead to next week's openings, we'll review Liv Tyler in One Night at McCool's.
You have no idea what this woman is capable of.
And Sylvester Stallone in Driven.
You think that I was falling in love with you?
Yeah. I love you.
You don't even know me.
Real emotions screw up the financial arrangement between dot-com millionaire Peter Sarsgaard and exotic dancer Molly Parker in Center of the World, a bold examination of a subject rarely tackled maturely in movies these days, sex. Director and co-writer Wayne Wang has created a Last Tango in Paris for the 21st century. It's shot on digital video with Sarsgaard as Richard, a burned-out computer whiz who is captivated by Florence, played by Parker.
What do you want me to do, baby?
What are the options?
A regular routine.
Richard pays Florence 10 grand to spend 3 days with him in Las Vegas, and they begin a kinky courtship that veers close to an actual relationship. But the game is interrupted when Florence's friend Jerry shows up.
He ripped into my purse like a piece of meat and took his $2,000 back. And I was going to go to Tacoma, you know, to see... And now I can't afford the trip. I can't see Jacob now.
Hey, don't worry about the money. This money's no problem. I can just transfer the funds into your account.
You can't take your money.
That's Carla Gugino from Spy Kids in a memorable performance. Like Florence, Jerry uses her sexuality as a weapon, a bartering tool, and a method of payment.
You don't have to pay him back, Jerry. He gave you the money. I wasn't trying to pay him back, Florence. I just thought we all might have a good time, you know?
But, like nearly every scene in Center of the World, things don't play out the way you'd expect. In fact, for all its nudity and eroticism and whispered fantasies, and one scene with a lollipop that's beyond a televised description, this film is about much more than sexual adventures. Richard claims the Center of the World is a computer. Florence says, no, it's the female sex organ. But they both know deep down that the true center of the world is the human heart, the most frightening and exhilarating place to connect. Wang, Sarsgaard, and especially the amazing Parker should be applauded for taking so many risks and succeeding so often.
What's fascinating is these two people, this man and this woman, are so similar. Both of them have major conflicts about making money. She doesn't want to make money by selling sex. Yeah. He doesn't want to make money by selling his IPO for his computer company, and that's why he stiffs the investors who are turning up for a meeting, and he's in Vegas with a hooker instead.
Right.
But at the same time, both of them prefer virtual sex. He prefers sex on his computer. She prefers sex in the lap dances that she performs in that club. And when it comes to the showdown time, both of them are really conflicted about sex and money, and you never know where the movie's going to go. And it's not some traditional guy and prostitute kind of drama. No,
not at all.
No.
It also reminded me of a movie called Exotica, where there's a relationship with the stripper that takes place in the strip club, and it has a certain parameter there, and then when you go outside of the strip club, it's hard for these people to connect. The acting is really good, and shooting it on digital isn't a gimmick here. It really brings you inside this very intimate story. I also like the choice of Las Vegas as a locale because there's so many strange things going on there, and they don't talk about gambling in Las Vegas at all. They're talking about how this is this new place that gives you everything, but ultimately leaves you empty.
Our next movie is kind of Crocodile Dundee in reverse. Instead of a wild man in the city, it's about an 80-year-old gay anthropologist who revisits the jungle tribes that he lived with 20 years ago. Keep the River on Your Right is about Tobias Schneebaum, who walked alone and unarmed into the rainforests of Peru and New Guinea, lived with natives, including one cannibal tribe, ate human flesh, took a male lover, and returned to tell the tale.
I never thought of it as being in the natural state of man. My search. It's so pretentious to say that I was out searching for something, but I suppose I was. I wanted some kind of inner peace, and I hadn't yet found it in my 20s. I certainly didn't find it in my 30s. I didn't find it in my 40s. It was only after the age of 50 that I became aware that perhaps life was getting easier for me.
Now retired, Schneebaum works as a lecturer on cruise ships. The filmmakers take him back to the jungle areas where he once lived.
This is the house that I used to live in. Has a satellite dish now. Didn't have that when I was here.
And yes, he did once eat human flesh.
How do people taste? I don't know. I don't remember. It was never one of the things that I lingered over in my mind.
Keep the River on Your Right is a perfect argument for documentaries because no fiction film would dare to create a character like this, and Tobias Schneebaum is a character. He walks into the jungle wearing a pair of athletic shoes. He keeps the river on his right so he can find his way out again, and he depends on the kindness of strangers. And the tribes he finds there accept him and treat him well. Maybe they feel protective because he is so obviously not a threat. The movie was directed by David Shapiro and Laurie Gwynn Shapiro, who knew a good story when they saw one. It's opening in a slow rollout around the country, so look for it.
Oh, I love this guy, Schneebaum. He's the real Crocodile Dundee because he's the real deal. You know, he doesn't need a fancy costume and a big knife. He just goes out there and he survives by his wits. Yeah. And Dr. Laura must be pulling her hair out at this movie because here he goes to this remote outpost. And he's like, oh, yeah, I went out with this guy once and I had a relationship with this man, which also obviously makes some important points about how gay people are in every culture you can imagine. He's also just a wonderful observer of life. I love when he talks about, you know, the tattoos and piercings that young people are doing now in modern American cities. And he says, you know, I've seen all of this a long time ago in very remote places. Just a really fascinating character. Wouldn't you want to spend some time with this guy and listen to his stories?
I met him at the Toronto Film Festival. He's 80 years old now. And what did it take to just walk alone into the jungle? I mean, people have these expeditions and they have, you know, all of this equipment and all bug spray and the tetanus shots and everything. He just walked out there and had a great time.
It's like he's going out for a cup of coffee.
It's interesting when he revisits these tribes and finds out that now, even after 20 years, their way of life is dying off and they're being corrupted by
gentrification,
consumerism, and so forth.
Yeah, fascinating movie. Okay, coming up next, one of my top 3 movies of last year is now going into wider release. Another look at The Claim when we come back. Now another look at a movie that played in a few theaters last year, but is just now beginning a general release. The Claim is Michael Winterbottom's heart-shattering story of love, greed, and betrayal in 1867 California. Loosely based on Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge, it's the story of Mr. Dillon, played by Peter Mullen, who rules the town of Kingdom Come by virtue of the mining claim he purchased as a young man and for which he paid a terrible price. New in town are a mysterious mother and daughter, played by Natasha Kinski and Sarah Polley.
Nice to give this to you.
This is...
It's for Mrs. Byrne.
Wes Bentley plays the surveyor who can make or break Kingdom Come by deciding whether the railroad will pass through town.
I don't accept gifts, Mr. Dillon. It's in the way of business.
What, you think of trying to bribe you?
You wouldn't be the first.
Oh, and he booked into the hotel, too. I told him he got a new bed, but he wouldn't listen to me.
Mr. Dillon is considered a fair man, and he has a flair for romantic gestures like moving an entire house for the woman he loves. But he's also heartless and tragic. The Claim reminded me of Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller, my favorite Western of the last 40 years. It's nearly to the level of that chilly masterpiece.
Coming up next, the movie Answer Man. And now the movie Answer Man opens the mail. I've received a pile of messages about the new movie Memento and what it means and how its hero knows he has short-term memory loss, since how could he be able to remember that? This is another one of those obsessively debatable movies like Pulp Fiction, The Usual Suspects, The Sixth Sense, and Fight Club, where fans analyze the smallest details. And there's a popular theory about how the hero's wife died. Now, I won't reveal it here, but you can find it on my online Answer Man column. The pieces of this theory do fit, and you can convince yourself it's correct but I don't think you can prove it from the movie, so that's sort of cheating. The movie Answer Man's Theory, well, the real objective of Memento, I think, is to make us identify with the hero's confusion.
All right, 2 thumbs way down for Freddy Got Fingered, 2 thumbs down for The Body, 2 more thumbs down for Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up for Center of the World, and 2 more thumbs up for Keep the River on Your Right.
Remember, you can hear our reviews at Ebert-Roeper-Movies.com and read us in print at SunTimes.com. Next week, Liv Tyler in One Night at McCool's. Until then, the balcony is closed.
You know, I really hope people seek out Center of the World because it's a truly, truly fascinating film.
It is, and at the other end of the spectrum, I imagine they better put up signs saying no refunds before Freddy Got Fingered, because people are going to be racing out of the theater, I'm sure of that.